the last thing that really just sealed the deal for me of all of this is that, he got sentenced on the same day that Mallory Beach's body was found. Exactly 4 years later. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I am your girl, Molinda Jae, here to talk about the Murdaugh trials, okay, and Mr. Alex Murdaugh himself being sentenced to life in prison, okay, and all I could hear is the life. That's the song that's literally been streaming in my head for the past 24 hours, because Tim Norman had also from Sweetie Pies has also met his fate as well, which was getting life in prison for red rumming his nephew Andre Montgomery due to M4 hire. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it with these articles that I'm about to really just slap y'all upside the head with, okay? And everybody has been streaming left to right, back and forth about this trial, and shouts out to them. I mean, shouts out to them for doing that, because when I get to the $1,000, no, not $1,000, when I get to the 1,000 subscriber mark, that's when I have the capabilities to go live at its full capacity. All right, so let's go with this one. So I want to start with this first, because I did do a video last night, early this morning, about the verdict that was basically delivered to him last night, of him being guilty, and then the sentencing happening today. So I'm gonna start off with this, because this is basically the key evidence of why he met his fate today. All right, early this Friday morning. So and this is coming from BuzzFeed.com, and I'm gonna stop my video for a moment. It reads how an unruly Labrador Retriever and a 50-second video led to Alex Murdaugh's downfall. Thank God for Bubba, prosecutor John Murdaugh said in his closing statement, just hours before the jury found Alex Murdaugh guilty of red rum. Okay. In their closing pitch to the jurors at Alex Murdaugh's red rum trial on Thursday, prosecutors made sure to thank an unlikely figure, a witness to the slayings who could not be called to the stand in the 6-week testimony, but whose presence at the scene of the crime ultimately proved pivotal, Bubba the Labrador Retriever. Thank God for Bubba, prosecutor John Murdaugh said in his closing statement before the ultimately convicted Alec of red rumming his wife and son after less than 3 hours of deliberation. Bubba was one of several Murdaugh family dogs at the kennel on the night of Maggie and Paul were KD'd on June 7th, 2021 at their rural hunting property in South Carolina. The dog also became something of a reoccurring character at the trial, with witnesses repeatedly describing the yellow Labrador as a rambunctious animal with a penchant for chasing chickens and guinea fowl. Only Alex appeared to have special control over the dog, something that was captured on footage filmed by Paul himself just minutes before he was KD'd. It took authorities months to crack into Paul's locked iPhone after the red rums, but when they ultimately found the video, it quickly became the most important piece of evidence in the entire trial, destroying Alex's alibi and proving he'd been lying to authorities. It was the one thing the lawyer hadn't accounted for as he meticulously planned the red rums. Prosecutors argued the 50 seconds of the footage showed Paul trying to quarrel a friend's dog, Cash, who was temporarily staying at the Murdaugh's kennel. Paul had been concerned about the dog's tail and wanted his friend's opinion, but they could not successfully have a video call due to weak cell phone reception on the property. Then apparently filmed the video to send his friend, but he never got a chance to do so. Quick, Cash, come here, Paul says in the video. He's got a bird in his mouth, Maggie can be heard saying loudly in the background. Bubba, says a third male voice. It's a guinea pig. Maggie says. It's a chicken, Paul replies as he returns his attention to Cash. Come here, Bubba, the male voice says. Come here, Bubba. So here is the video here, and I'm going to play it for you all, courtesy of BuzzFeed. Fair use, fair use.
Get back. Quit, Cash. Quit. It's okay. Come here. It's not bad. Come here, Cash. Cash.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth.
Hey, Bubba.
It's a guinea.
There's a chicken.
Come here, Bubba.
Come here, Cash.
Come here, Bubba.
Cash. Quit.
Okay, so that was the 50-second video there. As you can hear what was going about where near the dog kennels. And here is the Labrador Retriever Bubba here. That is a picture of the dog and courtesy of Maggie's Facebook account. And it also continues with the article, witness after witness, many of them longtime friends or family of the Murdaughs testified that the voice belonged to Alex. He repeatedly told the law enforcement that he had not seen his wife or son prior to waking from a post-dinner nap and driving to his mother's house. But this video and the audio of Alex's shouting Bubba's name placed him firmly at the scene just minutes before Maggie and Paul locked their phones for the very last time. Matters the prosecutor told the jury on Thursday when his own family seen the kennel footage. They told him, isn't it something that your best witness in here are the dogs? You know, some people say they got a sixth sense. You think Bubba knew? The Matters asked. He got Alex to say something. Bubba. Thank you, Bubba, Matters said, before noting that the dog is now living with the Murdaugh family housekeeper, who was herself another key witness to the trial. Okay. When he testified in his own defense, Alex had to concede he been caught lying to authorities as a result of the video, something he blamed on drug-induced paranoia. It was evidently a lie that the jury ultimately found too significant to ignore. The Matters described Paul's footage as akin to a piece of insurance that Paul had on his father in case the worst happened. Did anybody else in the world know that the video was out there except Paul? No, sir. Matters said, and it sit there until law enforcement working together, the state, the local, SLED, everybody got it out. The family had known for years about Alex's drug use, but surviving son Buster testified he believed his father had the addiction under control after a stint at a rehabilitation facility. It appeared from evidence presented at the trial that Maggie and Paul were less confident. A month before the red rums, Paul sent his father a text message. Mom found several bags of pills in your computer bag. Later that night, Maggie Googled descriptions of the pills. She had apparently recovered green gel peel P3 and white peel 30 on one side RP. She typed into the search engine according to her phone data. The two have been concerned for some time about Alex's addiction. Maggie's sister, Marion Proctor, I have to just side note this, is Miss Marion Proctor and is associated or affiliated with the Procter and Gamble family. I just want to know, or company. That was just the first thing that popped in my head when I seen the last name Proctor, because I hardly see anybody's last name being Proctor. Okay. But and this is my first time seeing the last name Proctor, but that's besides the point. Let's continue. Paul in particular seemed to take it upon himself to search the house to try to ensure his father was staying clean. Proctor testified that it was this dedication that led Maggie giving her youngest son a nickname, one that would prove ominously present, giving the key role that Paul played in filming a video that became a central piece of evidence that ultimately foiled his father's Red Rummus scheme. Paul had been Maggie's little detective. So even though the mother and son bond wasn't like all peaches and cream, at the end of the day, if something was disturbing amongst the two, or something was wrong in regards to the father or with both of them themselves, they still have some type of eye for an eye situation. Like, okay, we see each other and we know what's going on, but of course the denial of the other party says otherwise. Okay, so based on this article and based on what has been spoken about within the trial, apparently the 50-second video of them being at the kennels and the Labrador Retriever, as well as the little detective, aka Paul, was able to break the alibi. Okay, then I also want to switch to this article, because this is just 5 takeaways that we all can get from the Red Rum trial if you have not been keeping up with it lately. Okay, so it says jury on Thursday convicted Alex Murdaugh, a prominent South Carolina lawyer, of Red Rummin, his wife and son. Following the live coverage of the sentencing for his double M-word conviction, the Red Rum case against Alex Murdaugh and the disgraced South Carolina lawyer accused of K. Jen, his wife and son, concluded a jury verdict on Thursday after 6-week trial that probed the mysteries, manners, and the machinations of a fallen legal dynasty. After closing arguments were completed, the jury began deliberating Thursday afternoon whether Mr. Murdaugh, 54, fatally S-word his wife Maggie Murdaugh, who is 52, and her younger son Paul Murdaugh, which was 22 at the time, near the dog kennels on the family's rural hunting estate in Isden, South Carolina, in June 2021. They reached a guilty verdict less than 3 hours later. Prosecutors had argued that the Murdaugh committed the murders to divert attention from his own financial improprieties, which they said were about to be revealed. Testifying his own defense, Mr. Murdaugh admitted on the stand that he had stolen millions of dollars from his law firm, from clients, but maintained his innocence in the DS of his wife and son. Here's what to know about the case. Because she did, the wife Maggie, she did hire a financial forensic consultant to, figure out what is going on with their finances. And she was able to, there was some discoveries that was made that was very alarming to her. And also she was allegedly seeking a divorce attorney as well. Okay. All right. So Murdaugh was at the scene of the crime after denying more than 20 months that he was at the dog kennels where his wife and son were found. S word to D word, S2D. Alex Murdaugh admitted that he had lied about his whereabouts. He testified, in fact, he was at the kennels briefly that night before the red rums took place, but the admissions came only after the video confirming his presence by taking his Paul sons emerging in court. Mr. Murdaugh told the court that he had been at the kennels for about 5 minutes, or a few minutes, but then had left, laying down at the house for a while, and driven to check on his alien mother who lived about 15 minutes away. He said he returned about an hour later to find his family unresponsive. The kennels were okay, this is the location of the property. He blamed his lies to the police on paranoia spurred by the substance abuse codependency, as well as his distrust in the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, aka SLED, a state investigative agency. Mr. Murdaugh testified that he had feared that admitting he was at the kennels before the red rums would cause the police to consider him a suspect. Well, I'm just gonna leave my thoughts at the end, okay? I lied about being down there. He said, "I'm sorry that I did. There's not much physical evidence in the case." The second thing is there's not much physical evidence in the case. Prosecutors use cell phone calls, text messages, video, car navigation data, even step counts based on cell phone tracking to call into question Mr. Murdaugh's account of his whereabouts on the night of the KGings, but they offered little physical evidence. Investigators have now found the family-owned rifle that they used to K-word the missus, nor have they found the SG used to K-word Paul as well. No BLOOD was found on the white t-shirt that Mr. Murdaugh was wearing when the police arrived after he called 911. It would have been covered in BOLLD and body matter if he were guilty, his lawyers argued, and the DNA of an unknown man was discovered under Murdaugh's fingernails. Mr. Murdaugh's lawyers sought to portray the police investigation was sloppy, mentioning that some location data on Miss Murdaugh's phone from the day of the KGNs had been overwritten. Two deputies from the Colleton County Sheriff's Office admitted that tire tracks from the crime scene had been driven over and stepped on, while another deputy said he had walked near one of the victim's bodies without covering his shoes. Come on now. The sloppiness of it all, whether the person is connected to law enforcement, it's just been repetitive these days of sloppy investigating. Like, come on now. Defense lawyers also noted that the police issued a statement after the KGN saying that no immediate threat to the public existed was an indication that they argued that the authorities was investigating only Mr. Murdaugh. One defense lawyer, Jim Griffin, said the police failed miserably to investigate this case. Mr. Murdaugh would have been vindicated, he added, had they done a competent job. The third thing is Murdaugh had been charged with dozens of financial crimes. On the day of the KGNs, the chief financial officer of the Murdaugh law firm confronted him, accused him of pocketing about $800,000 in legal fees that he's supposed to have deposited in the firm's account. Prosecutors have since used Mr. Murdaugh of stealing about $8.8 million in all. He confessed under oath to many of those crimes, including embezzlement about $3.7 million in 2019. That was the same year that his son Paul was charged with drunkenly crashing the boat into a bridge. KG and one of his passengers, 19-year-old Mallory Beach, and I'm gonna get to that and how coincidental this all came into full circle in just a couple minutes. Mr. Murdaugh has maintained that he believed that his son was KD'd by an unknown assailant or assailants because of his involvement in that crash. Okay, possibly. The prosecution leaned on to Murdaugh's lies to persuade the jury not to trust him. So this is the fourth thing. Along with an array of financial misdeeds, Mr. Murdaugh testified that he had a long-time addiction to painkillers and a penchant for lying. The prosecution seized on that admission of how readily and easily he had lied to the police, his family, friends, to persuade the jury that he was lying about not having KD'd his wife and son. At one point, the lead prosecutor, Creighton Waters, held up a stack of papers relating to the clients whom Mr. Murdaugh stole from. Every single one of these, every single one of those, you had to sit down, look somebody in the eye and convince them that you were on their side when you were not correct, asked Mr. Murdaugh. While looking directly at the jury, what I admit is I misled them. I did wrong and I stole their money, Mr. Murdaugh responded. In turn, Mr. Murdaugh's lawyers portrayed his acknowledgement of his lies as willingness to come clean, saying that he recognized his shortcomings but had never been violent and would never have carried out the red rums. The fifth thing, the last thing, is surviving relatives were among Murdaugh's most ardent defenders to a point. Friends and relatives says Mr. Murdaugh was devastated by the KGNs. His brother John Mervyn Murdaugh testified that he would have to create a new word to describe how distraught he was. Alex Murdaugh's surviving son Buster testified that his father was destroyed and heartbroken after the KGNs. He said that when he spoke with his father about 20 minutes after the prosecutor said the M words took place, Alex sounded normal at the time. That Mr. Murdaugh's lawyer said he had yet to discover the bodies of his wife and son. Mr. Murdaugh's sister-in-law, Marion Proctor, who testified for the prosecution, said he seemed more concerned with protecting Paul's reputation than with learning who had KD'd his son. She said he began questioning her brother-in-law's accounts about 3 months after the red rums, when Mr. Murdaugh's firm hired him and accused him of stealing millions of dollars over the years. When Miss Proctor asked him who might have red rum his wife, Miss Proctor's only sister, and his son, Mr. Murdaugh offered a cryptic response. He said that he did not know who it was, but he felt like whoever did it thought about it for a long time. Miss Proctor said, I just didn't know what that meant. Okay, so that's the ending of that segment there on just the gist of it all, of just 5 takeaways from the trial. But also, okay, in the midst of all the scheme of the things, a juror from the trial is already speaking out about saying that the cell phone footage that I basically presented to you all, the 50-second clip that sealed the deal and the fate of Alex Murdaugh's, when it came to the red rummings of his wife and his son. And I'm gonna just get to it right here. And I'm just going to play this little segment. Fair use. This is courtesy of ABC News. I'm not trying to steal nobody's content, but I am just saying this and showing this for research and, well, yeah, definitely research purposes, okay? Because we're going to learn something out of this, all right?
distressed attorney then took the courtroom. Now, in an ABC News exclusive, juror Fred Moyer breaking his silence, revealing how the jury came to their decision.
When you first got in the room, you took a vote.
It was 2 not guilty, 1 not short, and 9 guilty.
What was your vote?
Guilty.
From the start.
Yes.
Moyer says it didn't take long to get everyone on the same page.
We started deliberating, going through the evidence. Everybody was pretty much talking. And about 45 minutes later, after all our deliberating, we figured it out.
So it took basically 45 minutes for you guys to come to a decision.
Probably about 45, maybe an hour.
That's really fast.
The evidence was clear.
When the evidence is clear and people's minds are made up, it's just when the evidence has been presented, it shouldn't take, I mean, of course it's going to take a minute for people to process and come to their own conclusions. But at the end of the day, once the evidence are very evident at this point, and also getting the reactions of the person who is getting accused of this and all the other influences surrounding them, people can make their decision real quickly, because it's written all on the wall.
It was this piece of video featuring Alex's voice at the crime scene moments before the murders that convinced him.
Eric's voice clear. Everybody else clear too.
Alec finally admitting it was him for the first time a year and a half after the murders.
Is it safe to say that he lied under oath, possibly?
He said it was him. Were you surprised?
I was very surprised.
Why?
That was his only savior right here.
For some people, it's so hard to understand how a husband, especially a father, would kill their own son. What made you so sure that he had?
His responses, how quick he was with the defense, and his lies, steady lies.
Did you feel like he was a liar?
A good liar, but not good enough.
Moyer.
So yeah, that's the small clip that I'm just going to show you all from there. Of course, you can get it from abcnews.com. But to continue on with the article, a juror who voted to convict Alec Murdaugh on Thursday told ABC News in an exclusive interview that a piece of evidence had convinced him of the disgraced lawyer's guilt was on the cell phone, placing him at the scene of the crime, basically. All right, so I just wanted to show that little piece to you all. And of course, here it is from CNN. Here's what happens next now that Alex Murdaugh has been sentenced to life to prison. After being sentenced to life in prison, the red rums of his wife and son, Alex Murdaugh, was released in custody of the South Carolina Department of Corrections. Wearing a brown jumpsuit and handcuffs, he could be seen exiting the courtroom with a law enforcement official guiding him. Murdaugh is now being expected to begin intake and evaluation process, which is expected to last for several weeks, according to South Carolina Attorney General's office. And the average time is normally about 45 days. Murdaugh will remain in a holding facility in Columbia, South Carolina, during the period, according to a South Carolina legal source with knowledge of the situation. And then just to add a little sprinkle to this, the judge did order to remove the Murdaugh's grandfather's portrait to ensure it was a fair trial. So I'm gonna read this little segment here. During the sentencing, hearing for disgraced South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh, Judge Clifton Newman said he had to have a portrait of Murdaugh's grandfather removed from the courthouse to ensure a fair trial, because it was mentioned within, I believe, the Netflix documentary that somebody recalled him, doing representing a client during trial, and he was like, you see that portrait over there, that is my grandfather there. So he has done his deeds, and do you know who I am? Basically giving the impression of, do you know how I am or who I am? Do not play with me type of vibe. Okay, to continue on with this, it says, you have a wife who has been KD'd, MD'd, a son who has been savagely MD'd, a lawyer, a person from the respective family who had controlled justice in this community for over a century, a person whose grandfather's portrait hanging at the back of the courthouse that I had to have ordered removed in order to ensure that a fair trial was had by both state and the defense. Newman said during the sentencing hearing, far as like a family background, Murdaugh was a former personal injury attorney, a member of a dynasty family in South Carolina's Low Country, where his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather served as local prosecutor consecutively from 1920 to 2006, because he was only a volunteer solicitor and not an actual solicitor at that. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, so now that we have went through the gist of that, I'm gonna tell you my thoughts about this situation, because I seen far as me with this particular trial and this family and all sorts of things, like the only thing that stood out to me far as like grabbing my attention was the red rums of his mother or of his wife and his son. But like I said, I was not even in the headspace at the time to watch the news, yet alone keep up with people like that. But based on watching the series of documentaries that I've watched, starting with the Netflix Murdaugh Red Rums, as well as the first 48 episode that is free to watch on YouTube, the HBO Max Low Country, the Murdaugh Dynasty, and the ID Murdaugh Red Rums Deadly Dynasty. I watched all those, and I was basically sunk in at that point, because I was like, ain't no way that man is finna get away with this at all, because it was just too much. So some little takeaways that I got, and I'll be doing separate videos of doing the breakdown and my thoughts of what has been presented to me from watching those documentaries, because that's a lot. Okay, but from what I got from this is that ever since I watched the documentaries and did just a small little research of this whole case scenario, I'm like, he guilty. The fact that he is able to use his power and his privilege, to do everything underneath the sun is beyond me. Okay, and the fact that also I found it real interesting. Another thing is, I thought it was very interesting that all the victims that has like this major media presence, so to speak, has had head injuries. Like Stephen Smith, his head injury that led to his demise. Mallory in the boating incident and her suffering blunt force trauma, which I expected that just based on how it was told in the Netflix documentary, was, I was like, the only way she was not able to make it out was that she hit her head on something which caused her to drown. And sure enough, that's what it really happened, based on what the family attorney of Mallory Beach was explaining in his explanation of representing his client. And then also Gloria, she fell, but I believe she got pushed down the stairs, because that was my first thought that came in my head. And she, on the end of her demise, was a head injury as well. And then now with Maggie and Paul, they basically, I mean, of course they passed away with multiple S-word wounds, but also, you know, Maggie, she had a couple bullets in her head as like the final destination, as well as Paul having head injury as well, to the point of he was unrecognizable, because the shotgun or the SG is just so powerful to where it will blow you out. Okay. So yeah, and then also Alex tried to take his own self out, and what kind of injury did he have? A head injury, a grave wound from the bullet of the weapon that he was trying to use at the moment, with the little squabble of the distant cousin Curtis Smith. So do y'all see the common factor here? All these head injuries, whether it was from a piling, from a boat incident, or a baseball bat, or a GSW, and so forth and so on, like head injuries. That's another sequence of things that was catching my eye then. All right. And then another thing was also, it's crazy how when the officers arrived at the scene, the first thing he mentioned was, my family is being targeted because of the boating incident. But there was, I feel like there's plenty of people that want to go after you, sir, because of all the scamming and money laundering and possibly racketeering that you've been doing for the past past years. So it can't be, in my opinion, it can't be just the people that, even though the boating incident was the catalyst, the climax to the downfall, but I'm pretty sure the other clients that you messed over before that boating incident happened wanted to go after you as well. And then, so I just found out that was the first thing that one of the first things he said once the police arrived at the scene was, my family's being targeted because of the recent boating incident. It's a long story. There was a boating incident that my son was doing and all that stuff, yada yada. And I feel like it's a revenge plot or a vendetta that's going on, and blah 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 blah. Okay. And then also another thing that stood out to me the most was that is it safe to say that he lied under oath because of him eventually coming out within the last couple of days of trial, towards the ending of the trial, that he admitted that he was on the scene because the video footage had arisen. Okay. And also, finally, the last thing, like, well, I'll say this is this is probably third to last. Okay. The next thing was a 20-day trial. It was a 28-day of trial. 75 witnesses were called to come forward to for their statement. 3 hours of deliberation. It only took 45 minutes or 35 minutes to, make a decision amongst the jurors. Also, the defense asked for a mistrial, but the judge dismissed that. And finally, the last thing that really just sealed the deal for me of all of this is that, he got sentenced on the same day that Mallory Beach's body was found. Exactly 4 years later. If you can't tell me that ain't justice being served in the physical and in the spiritual. Y'all cannot tell me that is not a coincidence. Okay, when I tell you that is not the spirit working, okay, the spirit realm is working hard. They is not playing with nobody this year, because we are in the year of 7. Okay, I'm gonna break it down to y'all. We are in the year of 7. 7 is dealing with that spirituality, all things God, all things the Most High, whomever you worship. Okay. And also, I stated that some relationships are going to get tested this year, because the 7 energy. Okay, I'm gonna veer off just a little bit, but stay with me. The 7 energy, the 7th house deals with the justice system, marriages, relationship. Okay, law enforcement. Also, the 7 number or the 7 energy holds Libra. Libra is dealing with the justice scales. Hence, the scales is the symbol for Libra. You cannot tell me the spiritual realm is now working in overdrive this year. Okay, we didn't have we didn't have 2 prominent people within 2 days been sentenced to life in prison because of the wrongdoings that they have been doing for years and years and years. And it may not happen the time that it happened to get justice, but when it does, it's gonna come at you tenfold. Okay, it's gonna come at you tenfold when you least expect it. And that's exactly that it happened within these past couple of days. Is the verdict between not only Tim Norman from Sweetie Pies, but also Alex Murdaugh. They being both sentenced to life of the wrongdoings that they did to others that caused heartache, pain, and distress. Okay, I'm telling you, if you are not right with the spirit, okay, whatever form of religion, spiritual belief, if you are not right with yourself and the source, you better get right now. You better get right immediately, because I'm telling you, the universe is not playing with y'all this year. The universe is not playing with us this year. If this don't wake you up today, I don't know what to tell you, because that was the icing on the cake of him being convicted and sentenced. Well, really sentenced on the day 4 years later exactly of when Mallory Beach's body has been found after that boating incident. You cannot tell me that, okay? You cannot tell me that is not karma. That is not a coincidence. That is spiritual justice as well as physical justice as well. This is a time that folks are going to be made an example out of, because people have been done wrong for so long, and they have been in distress for so long with heartache, pain, and all sorts of things, and be thinking the perpetrators be thinking they're gonna be getting away with that stuff. But I promise you, whenever it is the judgment call, when judgment calls, it's gonna come to you when you least expect it. I kid you not. This is a true testament right there. Don't play with the spirit, okay? Do not play with the spirit at all. And of course, don't let your privilege and your status think you are above the law, because at the end of the day, just as much you have money, status, and all that, and you are able to get away with majority of the things. But I promise you, yo, when that judgment get to calling, with them trumpets start to sound, you gonna be proven that you are not above the law at the end of the day. Now that's enough of my preaching. Feel free to leave your comments down below in the comment section, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Like I said, I will be doing breakdowns of the documentaries that I've watched with this particular family here, so be on the lookout for those. Like I said, my schedule is a little rocky right now when it comes to between work and doing this workshop. If you want to attend the workshop, feel free to do so. I'm gonna leave the link in the description box below of the self-love workshop. Come on over and fellowship with me, get to know me on a deeper level, get tapped in so we can love on one another, because there's a lot more hate than love out here in these streets, and we got to continue to fight for the ones who are not able to fight for themselves, whether they are here physically or in the ethers, in the spiritual realm. Okay, but I'm gonna leave y'all to it. I'll see you guys in the next one.